Again, welcome everyone to this Translational Research Program as part of the NIH 2023 Graduate and Professional School Fair Programming. So it is a great pleasure to be your host today, and I'm very excited to host the session, and I also hope that you are as excited as we are. So thank you very much for joining the session today. So today's session is actually joined by a number of incredible representatives from the TRP community. I'd like to introduce them to you all. So first of all, that's me. I'm Cindy. I am the International Recruitment and Transition Officer at the Tamarti Faculty of Medicine. I work at UofT for a number of years, primarily in charge or supporting campus-wide or faculty-wide recruitment event. So this is a great pleasure to meet with everybody. And now I would like to pass it over to Joseph to introduce himself.
Hello, everyone. So my name is Joseph. I'm going to be one of the people that will be speaking to this program here. But frankly, I think the more important people that you want to hear from are over there in my corner. I don't know where they appear on your screen, but I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves because they're really the people you should be here to talk with and listen to. Who wants to go first?
I'm happy to go first. Thanks so much, Joseph. So hi, everyone, and welcome to the session. My name is Geil Astorga. I'm in my second year now of the Translational Research Program, or we commonly refer to as TRP. So right now, I'm very busy working on my capstone, and I'm happy to share more about that later on. But currently as well, I'm working as a communications specialist at the lab called the Upstream Lab. It's based at St. Michael's Hospital in Toronto. And I'm also part of an adaptive platform trial of treatments for COVID in community settings, and I'm leading the recruitment and communications committee of that. So great to have you all and looking forward to having a very fruitful discussion.
And I guess last one from me is myself. My name is Mouzhan. I'm first year going to a second year in TRP this year. So I just started my capstone with my group. Before that, I was a life science student in UofT St. George campus. So if you have any questions from transitioning from undergrad to like master's and how it is, feel free to shoot me a message either in the chat or like out in the question and answer session. And I'm happy to be here. Excited to get to know all of you.
Okay, that's excellent. Thank you so much for the introduction, and also thank you so much for being here today. So to just provide an overview about what to expect during this 1 hour session, we will begin with a presentation to introduce our translational research program for you to have a better understanding about what this professional degree look like. Following the presentation, we will have our student ambassador Geil and Mouzhan to share their authentic experience as a student in the TRP program. So I do want to remind everyone that we have the chat open and we welcome you to drop your questions in the chat. We may not be able to answer every single question because we just have this 1 hour, but we will definitely do our best. We will also make sure to share our contact information with you towards the end of the session. And so you know that this is not the only chance for you to connect with the program, and you do have a lot of opportunity to stay connected with the program for any questions you may have or any other follow-up. So acknowledgement to the traditional land as the starting point is that we wish to acknowledge this land on which the University of Toronto operates. For thousands of years, it has been the traditional land of the Huron-Wendat, the Seneca, and most recently, the Mississaugas of the Credit. Today, this meeting place is still the home for many Indigenous people from across Turtle Island, and we are grateful to have the opportunity to work on this land. So when you are looking at the undergraduate and the graduate study, I understand we have a variety of audiences here today. Some of you are in your undergraduate program, some of you are taking a gap year, or some of you are already working in the professional field. So I just want to show you this presentation slide to refresh on some differences between the undergrad and graduate when you're reflecting on these experiences, because the differences between the two is actually from the student life perspective can be quite significant, as these two levels of education would cater different stage of academic and personal development. So to name a few, undergraduate program typically provide a broad and foundational education. Students are exposed to a wide range of subjects, and that often requires people to fulfill general education requirement. And the focus is on acquiring essential knowledge and skills. However, for grad school, on the other hand, is more specialized, or it could be more research oriented. So students pursue advanced study in a specific field and also conducting in-depth research focused on a particular area of expertise. And the second, the workload is also quite different as well, because for the graduate study, it could be more intense and also it could be more specialized. When you are thinking about the undergrad school and graduate school, and it may come with different class size as well. So undergraduate classes are often tend to be large, and especially in the introductory courses, students may have less interaction with their faculty member because the faculty to student ratio is very different. So with graduate school is oftentimes is mid-size to small size class, and it will foster more intimate and interactive learning environment. So students would have more opportunity to engage with their professor and also contribute to class discussion and to collaborate with their peers and also research project. So I think these are all the things that I summarized for everybody to reflect on the undergraduate study and graduate study, because again, the TRP program is a graduate program. You are always transitioning from one stage to another stage. So of course, this is not an exhaustive list, but I just want to share these facts for you to better understand, to refresh and relearn the differences between these two stages. So I understand, being mindful that we have a number of younger audiences, we really want to invite you to reflect on some fundamental questions that significantly shape your future career path in this dynamic and rewarding industry. So a lot of younger audiences, when they're starting navigating their career path, and they need to think about these critical questions. So for example, do you enjoy helping others? Do you enjoy working with people? Because healthcare is a human-centered field. And if you find connecting with others, being a compassionate listener or a supportive ally during the time of vulnerability, or if you enjoy lifelong learning and working with cutting-edge technology, healthcare may be the field that you want to consider for your next step. So I would like to wrap up my part for the presentation, because I understand everybody here, you understand that this is a U of T information session. You all have your own reason choosing U of T to be your future home away from home. So I'm going to wrap up my portion and also invite Joseph back. And I'm going to hand it over to Joseph to talk a little bit more about why translational research. And during the presentation, Joseph would talk about the unique courses, curriculum overview, program industry partnership, and also the critical skill set students would earn from completing this program. Hi, Joseph. Can I just pass it over to you?
Absolutely. Thank you very much. Thank you for joining us. As this pops up, I'm going to lose your faces for a bit, but I'm going to try and get them back. I hope you can see the screen. PowerPoint isn't really ideal or the best way of telling you what the TRP is about. So I am going to go through this, even though I have 40 slides, I'm going to go through this incredibly fast. You may feel free to stop me at any time. If you want, ask questions, totally encourage it. Those of you that don't have your cameras on, feel free to turn it on so we can see your reaction, whether you're bored, whether you're happy or not. It's so much better to interact. But then afterwards, I think what the real opportunity here is for you to ask questions of students in the program. And their experience is different than mine, and their experience is the one that really counts, and the one that you should probably listen to more than mine. So with that, I'm going to give you a really high level, really quick talk, PowerPoint, super fast slide on what is it that the TRP is, or more specifically, I guess, is translational research. We live in, I know people say this all the time, but we really do live in unprecedented times. The way that things are changing right now, several hundred years ago, you'd have one suit, one outfit for years, and then you'd mend it and pass it on to your kids or whatever. Fashion didn't change very much. It took decades. Styles, opinions, education, textbooks used to be around for years, unchanged, decades. Now, if you're getting stuff about healthcare from a textbook, any of you, I dare you, find a textbook that you, if you had one, oh, I'm sure they forced you to pay for it, so I'm sure you have them. Look at your textbook. I'm willing to bet that 20, 30, 40% of the stuff in there is outdated 4 years down the road. So we do actually live in unprecedented times. And I know you're tired of hearing this, but AI. The world is about to change. And it's about to change in ways that we can't possibly predict. We just can't. Nobody 20 years ago would have been thinking about protein, well, actually they were, but okay, 100 years ago, protein folding and DNA and transcription. So we have this glory time. I would argue we're about to enter the golden state of human health, in the sense that we are going to start understanding how things actually work. Right now, we have maybe 5% of diseases covered. 95, the orphans, the rare, all of the other stuff is out there. It's out there for somebody to look at, for somebody to investigate, to find pathways, to find interventions. Unfortunately, when we do, it takes time. When you make a discovery in health science these days, they're really picky about what you do with it. You can't just say, hey, these days at least you can't, I got a little molecule here I'd like to inject you with and give it a try. There are regulations and pathways and systems. And it seems very much like the pathway from discovery to actually using it, people, 10, 15, 20 years, and we're not seeing it. The research is accelerating exponentially, but its application, its implementation, its use to benefit patients is lagging behind. And there are many reasons for this. One reason is the idea of, antimatter or doesn't matter. Quite often in the lab of the past, you make a discovery, you're a scientist, you're a clinician, you're 18 years invested in your career, and now someone says, hey, you should make a startup. Yeah, abandon all of your education, abandon your comfort salary, abandon everything you've been working for. Just go and do a startup. Who knows, you'll fail in a year, maybe 6 months, and then you can think about something else. Well, believe it or not, there's no real actual, or at least in past systems, reason for researchers to go out and actually make stuff happen in the hospitals. And in fact, there are lots of disincentives, because once you've published something, your next pressure is to get that next grant. If you don't get that next grant, then you don't have that next student, then you don't have that next project, which you don't have a good performance review, and then you lose everything and it comes crashing down. What's more is, why should you collaborate with people if you're not the PI, if you're not the leader, if you're not the only person, then it doesn't matter. So patients are never really involved. And so we have all of these problems that essentially, at the very least, you can say we have an inefficient system of innovation. So whether it is innovation pulled by market, the needs of people like during a pandemic, or innovation through discovery and research that needs to be pushed out into clinics and communities, how it's done is not very effective. So what is translational research? The reality is people don't know what our name means, and it's niche, and who cares? But it is important, and I suggest Wikipedia is a good place to start. And Wikipedia basically says a couple of really interesting things, that it's a subset of applied research, it's related to bench to bedside, and it's interchangeably used with translational medicine or translational science. So what does that mean? Well, if we look at what research means, it's basically systematic investigation. So a way of doing something efficiently. If you're doing it blindly, random chance, flip a coin, you can't really improve on how you do it. So applying a system to thinking about innovation, to thinking about mobilizing research for patient outcomes is the first step. Scientific research is systematic. It's not, hey, I stumbled over something or an apple fell on me. Let's do the experiment. Let's show, let's figure out. The second part is translation. And translation is a descriptor. It's a kind of science or a kind of activity, a kind of research that really goes from one point to another. And really, this implies boundary crossings in any direction. It's the ability to take a discovery and put it into a clinic, or put it into a company, or put it into a community policy or action, and to take observations from the community and bring them into labs or into science, bring in needs from the community in order to find knowledge that can address those needs. So basically, we're looking at a systematic way of researching that moves knowledge from one state to another. Another way of looking at it is discovery to theory or practice. And actually, NIH provides us with a nice definition of translation. It's this process of turning observations from laboratory, clinic, community into stuff that help people and patients. And that is where the Translational Research Program at the U of T comes in. Our mission is really to challenge students to think differently so that they can champion change, so that you are able to take knowledge to understand patient-centric needs and then match the problems with potential interventions to systematically test them and then implement them so that you have impact. And we do this through a range of skills. We do this through learning by doing and by building your networks and community. But most of all, I think the focus is on trying to get you to understand one really, really key thing. You, me, all of us are biased. We only have one perspective. And the longer we live, the more we know, the more we like to entrench our views in one perspective. To be creative problem solvers, to be collaborative, to be innovative, you have to learn how to understand that your perspective is only one in 1,000. And there are always different ways of approaching a problem, reframing it, finding a different direction, changing, pivoting, doing something else. Because at the end of the day, innovation, translation, impact is all about problem solving and seeing different ways of approaching familiar problems. So I've used this a lot. I'm going to do this very quickly because I'm sure you guys are bored at this point of me talking. Here's a square. How many parts can you divide it into? 4 equal parts. And raise a hand if you have 2. 0 to 3. Raise hand if you 0 to 3. Those of you with your camera off. Nobody. Nobody has 0 to 3. That's sad. 4 to 7. Nobody wants to do 4 to 7. Oh, one volunteer sort of, everyone's a little afraid. What if I'm going to raise my hand? They're going to see my hand. Maybe it's not so clean on the inside. Whatever, like it's okay. 8 to 15. Nobody yet. Nobody 8 to 15. 16 or more? Zoe, 16 or more. Wow, that's brave. V, how do you pronounce your name? V or Vi?
Sorry, it's V. It's a nickname. It's Vivette. Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Oh, thank you. I was just curious. All right. Well, Zoe and V win. Because the point is not how we solve this, but how we think about the problem. And the second we shift our thinking, stuff happens. So first of all, how many of you saw the square as 4 quadrants or 4 triangles? That is usually the typical way that people come into the problem, Cartesian plane or 2 lines crossing. Most people don't initially think of a systematic approach. Let's apply a grid to the square. Well, if you apply a grid, instead of 2 options, you now can get 4. And if you refine the grid actually and keep refining it, you get more and more options with more and more granular pixels. But in any approach, systematic approach, what happens? There are rules, and once the rules are in place, there are always ways that things don't belong to the rules. So if you applied a systematic approach here of squares or a grid, you would have missed one of the basic ways of looking at this through triangles. The reality is that because a square can be separated into 4 parts based on a center, and that center can revolve around and switch shapes as long as those shapes remain more or less or exactly in symmetrical, there are infinite solutions to this. But we usually see 2, sometimes 4, maybe 8. So the TRP is a competency-based approach to learning about how to innovate, how to think about problems, and how to solve them. We are now working with competency by design model out of the Royal College and trying to figure out how to apply it to graduate education. And really what we can promise you, or we're trying to promise you to get to the stage, that as a student, as a learner in our program, when you finish, you will be able to demonstrate persuasive communication, that you can argue and communicate, convince people of things, that you can creatively problem solve, that you can manage yourself in some fashion, that you can collaborate productively with others, and that you understand about how to mobilize knowledge into impact. There are subsets of these competencies, but essentially our goal is that every student that comes from our program will, through the 2 years, demonstrate those 5 core competencies. And those 5 core competencies actually will serve you. I swear they will serve you throughout your life in any career you choose to go into after this program. I welcome any of you to come up with a field where persuasive communication or productive collaboration is not something that is an issue. Likely very solitary and sort of dull fields, hopefully. So in addition to the education, we also build community. We encourage our students to take initiative. The pandemic sort of hit us in a very different, unique way, in that most of the things we had established before we had to rethink. But our students rethought and went from in-person to podcasts and to other types of engagement modes. And so they were really impressive. We used to, and still do, really stress contextual inquiry, going out, talking to people, actually getting your hands dirty, knowledge in context. And so that was made a little more difficult through remote means. But at the same time, we've learned how to adapt and deliver more of a hybrid experience. So it's a 2-year program. It's a 2-year graduate. In the first year, you go through several courses, including the rhetoric of science, which is the art of persuasion, methods, practices, and contexts, projects in translational research, a foundations course that gives you an overview of the land. And you do this, and you start prepping for pitching your own capstone project, which is the bulk of the second year. Now, we encourage people to do collaborative groups for the project because collaboration is one of the outcomes, productive collaboration. There are some people that do things individually. They still work in sort of groups. But that's sort of the program in a nutshell. In a lot of ways, you can shape it to your interests, and we encourage you to do so. But having said that, it's very hard to do it as well. And so you learn sort of the ups and downs of embracing failure, the frustration of not getting things in the first time. And that's part of the learning process. There are 2 electives and a number of different modules, including intellectual property, project management, leadership, a few others that I forget. Our students go into a variety of directions. Usually the clinicians primarily stay clinicians. However, professionals, recent graduates have gone into industry, carry on with research activities or research-based industry consulting, into government. Some go into clinical settings, some go into academe, and others go for PhDs or MDs are usually the biggest work. So we're a community, a mindset, and an education. When you join our program, you're joining kind of more than just what is done in the classroom. That's if you want our newsletter. And that's what I'm going to end with now, so that I can hand it back to Cindy and we can talk to the students.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you so much, Joseph. This is definitely fascinating. And it is always good to learn that this unique program is encouraging people to think outside the box and also to be innovative. So thank you so much for the presentation. And now we are going to move to our student panel discussion. As we introduced at the very beginning, we do have 2 student ambassadors. They are current TRP program student, and Geil and Mouzhan. So are you here? Are you ready?
Yeah, they're ready.
Okay, excellent. So yeah, so I see they are very excited, and also they are very happy to start this part of course, because this is one of the most exciting part of today's presentation. So we do have a number of questions prepared in advance that I'm going to ask on behalf of our audiences today, because as we talk to different students when they're inquiring about the program, they would always like to hear something from the current student. So we are very happy to connect our current student with our prospective student. So the first question I would like to ask our student ambassador is that, why did you choose University of Toronto, and why did you choose your program, MHSC Translational Research Program? Geil, would you like to start?
Sure, happy to. So I chose TRP because I needed a master's degree that will bridge my skills, undergraduate studies, and experience in communications to healthcare research. As I've mentioned earlier, my bachelor's is in communication studies. And while I was completing that, I worked in different healthcare centers, such as allergy research, childhood disability, things like that. So honestly, my initial intention is to learn how I can improve my skills in knowledge translation. And interestingly, when I Googled that, I came across the TRP. And I also mentioned this in my interview after our orientation in 2021, and I'm happy to say it again, that the TRP just checks all the boxes for me, right? Because first I thought about, is this something that will challenge me? And for sure, just looking at the course requirements, I like how the program will tap into my different skills and background. So I have a legal background as well. I had interests in implementation science and of course, communication. And then the second is the networking and career opportunities. And again, another check for me for the TRP, because aside from taking a course specific to networking, there are a lot of opportunities within the program to be involved in the real world. And I'm sure you'll benefit from that as well. And actually, I'm excited to share that partly because of this program, I landed this really great job that I have right now. And the last consideration I had was the financial aspects of pursuing a graduate degree. And again, another check for the TRP, because when I applied for the program, I got awarded the Canada Graduate Scholarship, or CGSM, some of you may be familiar, and I'm very happy that it covered my first year of studies. So that was really helpful.
Geil, I'm sorry to jump in, but
Yeah.
you're approaching the end of your second year. Has it been challenging?
Oh yeah, for sure. And I'm happy to like get into more deeper on the details on that as well. But yeah, and I learned a lot, because this is perfect timing, because we're writing our reflection for exit interview, and I've been reflecting a lot. So yeah, for sure.
Thanks for sharing that, Geil. So I think my thought process was much simpler than Geil's. So I was a UofT student for my bachelor's already. So I was like familiar with the culture. And the way I learned about TRP was I was in an information session about professional master's programs, like something similar to this. And then TRP came along and I heard two things, and I also have my notes that made me be like, okay, let's see what's going on. One is what that they said there will be no traditional marking, at least for my cohort. I'm not sure what is going to be happening for the next cohort. And I was like, oh, no marking in the UofT? Are you kidding me? So that was a big thing for me. And then another one was that they said how they're going to talk with our targeted population. And I was like, oh, I will learn something that way, because in my 4 years of undergrad, I feel that I didn't learn as much as I wanted to. And I heard those two things and I said, okay, I want to apply for this program, even though my initial plan was to take a gap year, but obviously that didn't happen since I'm here. And I don't regret that decision. I feel like I learned a lot on how to work with people, like how to, like in my group, in the classroom environment, how not to be shy, speak up your mind. And there's also room for failure and trying new things. And you're not afraid. You're like, oh my God, my mark gonna come down. So that was a big thing for me. And I'm really happy to be here. That's like, let's try new things. What's the worst that can happen? Nothing, you learn.
Excellent. Thank you very much for sharing that. And also it's great to hear the factors that influencing your decision making. So my second question is actually building on the first one. And I hear that both of you already touched base a little bit about it. So the Translational Research Program is a graduate program. So that means you have to complete your undergraduate program before you start the TRP program. And for example, at U of T, undergraduate program, they provide a lot of flexibilities. For example, you can choose to be specialized in a field, or you can choose to be major or minor in certain area. So my question is, did you always know that you want to apply to TRP at the very beginning of your undergrad or at an early stage of educational journey? Or you also have some different idea? How did you navigate? And in the end, you decide this is a program I'm going to apply, and this is a program is going to provide me with all the necessary skill set for me to success. So would you like to share a little bit about that?
I guess I can go first for this one since I kind of touched on it. So for me, in my undergrad, I was really looking forward to middle school. Like, I think it was partly my family influence because I also come from being Middle Eastern, and family that also has many positions in it. They're like, middle school is a choice. But in my fourth year, I didn't think I'm ready. I was to work with the population. I didn't feel that I'm prepared enough to go to middle school because it's a very heavy responsibility when you go to middle school and become a physician. I was like, am I professionally, mentally, and emotionally ready to take this journey? And then when I see the TRP opportunity, as I mentioned, how you're going to talk with people, learn interactions, team building, and actually try to solve the problem that the population needs, I was like, okay, even if I want to be a physician, this right here will help me to build on that skill. And when I joined the program, I was actually joined the program really late. I saw the information session late March, and I applied 2 days before the deadline because I was waiting for my references. And on that note, get your references early as you can. Sometimes it can be really late. But I got an interview after a week, and then I got in 2 weeks after that. But yeah, even if it's last minute, there's still a chance. But try not to leave it for last minute. Other than that, yeah. Oh, another thing I guess I should mention, after the information session, I meet up with Joseph again, and then with one of our, Emma was our officer. And then when I was about to get my interview, I met with the person who was supposed to interview me 3 days before my interview. I was really shameless and asked, oh, is it going to be hard? What questions should I be prepared for? And they just laughed and they said, just be yourself. And that's really key, just be yourself and you'll get it. Okay, and I'm going to pass it to Geil. I talk too much.
No, that's all right, Mouzhan. Thanks so much. So I was on the other side of the spectrum. I applied so early. There hasn't been any decision yet whether it's going to be online or in person, but I knew I wanted to do a master's after my undergrad. Actually, I took a year, but then after that, I knew I wanted one, and then I found TRP. So May 2020, I already applied. By June 2020, I got an interview, and then December 2020, I was already accepted to the program, and it started September 2021. So, just really being proactive about my application and asking people to provide a reference for me, and of course, preparing for the interview. One advice I would share is just come into the interview thinking you're already part of their program, so you would be a little bit more confident. And it's not very technical questions that they're asking. I don't know, Joseph, I could spill the tea on this, but it's not very technical. It's really just getting to know you and your goals and aspirations and why you chose the TRP. And again, at the time, I was a communications person working in healthcare research, so I needed something that will bridge those two fields for me. So I looked into the TRP. I thought what I'll learn from each course, and I also talked to mentors as well as people who's already working the job that I want in the future, and then ask about their thoughts. So those were my kind of guidelines in deciding if I wanted to go for this program.
Excellent. Thank you very much for sharing the journey that before you apply to the program, and also your experience while you're applying to the program. So my next question is to really encourage both of you to reflect on the curriculum you're having. Because I remember from the presentation, Joseph just mentioned that this is a 2-year program. And also it seems like there are different aspects into these 2 years program, including a number of capstone projects. So I wonder, like, with your experience, what do you like the most about your program? It could be an example of your capstone project, or it could be something outside your academic field. So would you like to share something with our audiences today?
I guess it's my turn. So a short answer to what I like about the program is I was able to customize my learning experience. And I think if you're a professional or a student or just someone who's just looking at what's available out there, I think having that option to pick and choose the courses that resonate with you is really important. And in my case, I chose modules that aligned well with what I want. So I've mentioned earlier, networking, knowledge translation, and community. We also have this applied research, we call it SWARM, student work and research module. I'm also interested in equity and health research. So I took that, health economics, and of course, translational thinking. And then the electives portion are very exciting too, because we get to take courses outside of the department. So that was really great. So I took one called Knowledge, Media, and Learning, and it was a super immersive learning experience. The other knowledge implementation class as well, I had classmates and instructors from Ben Gurion University in Israel. So, having that international experience as well was really great. But overall, I think with the program, it encourages you to be proactive with your learning journey, and that helped me not only as a student, but also as a professional.
Thank you for the true answer, Gail. I guess for me, what I like were the case studies that you will do in the foundations and also the experiential learning we did in the projects class. So there are many, sometimes at a time, like in 1 month, especially, I'm thinking about January and February, you're working on 4 different projects at least simultaneously. And it's so fun because like you're using kind of the same base knowledge, but applying it different ways depending on who you're working with and what the project is about. And I found it most fun because the things you learn, you actually get to use it right afterwards in the projects in the class that you're doing with different teams. So I learned, it was like, that's why I said I feel like I learned a lot more in this 1 year in TRP than in my 4 years of undergrad. And I think that's my highlight of the program. Kind of maybe at 12 minutes so, and I tend to talk too much. So I think I'm gonna quiet down to move on to the next section.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. And also, it sounds like it's very exciting. And also with the curriculum, you do have a lot of opportunity to engage yourself into different aspects of the learning environment. So my next question is more about the learning environment and also the community within TRP. So when people think about the learning environment, they think about peer support, they think about mentorship, they think about the entire community. So I wonder from your experience, how would you describe the learning environment within the TRP program? And also, what does the culture look like? And how does the faculty or your fellow students supporting each other during this learning process? Mouzhan, would you like to start?
Yes.
Or yeah.
I can start. So TRP is a very small group. We are like only like this cohort was only 33 students. And we all know each other. You'll probably have a chance to work with everyone in your cohort because you do so many group works. So there's a very high chance of you working with almost everybody. Or you either work with almost everybody or you work with the same people around by coincidence. For me, it was with everyone. And what happens, like everyone knows each other, you have your group chats, everyone is very supportive. That's what I can say. Yes, everyone is very supportive. It's not toxic at all. There might be some rumors about it. For undergrad, it's true, but like in this master's program, no. Everyone wants the best of each other, and if they see any resources, they will share it with you. There is no hiding any opportunities. As for faculty-wise, the TRP website has this booking system. Then you can always book for councils, like even as a prospective student yourself, if you want to know more about it, you can always book an appointment there. So that also always helped me because I could book appointments with Joseph, for example, or the other program directors. to just learn more about the programs and other opportunities. You also get emails about any upcoming grants, opportunities, jobs, or like anything that might be resourceful to you. And for mentorship, the mentorship is provided by the Faculty of Medicine itself. You will also get an email from it in September or October. You fill a short questionnaire and then they pair you up with someone. And for example, I had a mentor, it was second year in TRP as well, and it was a very great experience because they helped me out sometimes with just navigating the assignments and the course and what I want to do for the future. So try to use the resources. They are there, you just need to use them.
So maybe I can use the last few minutes to say how the faculty and staff and students are super duper duper supportive, which I really like about the TRP. And I think one thing that helped me a lot is we have this thing called the individual development plan, where you could meet with your TRP mentor at least once per semester and just talk about your goals. So my personal experience with that, the mentor that was assigned to me, it was random. They assigned it randomly, was Dr. Richard Fody. So the first conversation I had with him was about me trusting my skills more and being more confident about what I could do. And that conversation I had with him helped me motivate me to switch jobs and basically just chase what I want, which is really great. And then, of course, we started our capstone project very early on, and it's a module called KT in the Community with Drs. Raza Mirza and Chris Klinger, and they're very supportive that we were able to take that project to another module. We've presented it twice in a conference and then made it our capstone essentially with their support. And of course, not to mention Dr. Joseph Ferenbok, who's here. What I love about Joseph, he hosts this coffee chats, and imagine having a program director who gives you that access and time to talk about ideas and share feedback in general. And of course, Joseph also helped us with our grant application with the Sickle Cell Awareness Group of Ontario. We got that grant and it's now funding our capstone, which is really helpful. Another thing that's kind of like the benefit of being in a TRP is we have this competency-based assessments. So literally they just give us feedback on how we're doing in the program. Not grade related or whatsoever, but we have this opportunity to check in if we're hitting the competencies of being in the TRP. And our supervisors, and actually just recently, I had a meeting with Dr. Edita Marcon, and she gave me this personalized feedback on how I could improve and what I'm doing great. So, and then lastly, of course, the TRP staff, right? Like they're always there to answer questions. And if I have events happening that's related to my work and related to UofT, they share it. So yeah, it's really a community that we've built here. And just to disclose, I'm not getting paid to talk about the TRP. So
Yeah, I love that. Thank you so much, Geil, for sharing this. So my next question is actually for you to think about during the program and also during the transition. Have you ever encountered any challenges? Because we understand for graduate student, you're actually in the phase that you have a lot of commitment, your academic commitment, and also your personal commitment. So how do you balance these different demand? Have you ever encountered any major challenges? I'm pretty sure you have, but most importantly, what is your coping mechanism and how do you develop your coping mechanism to cope with the challenge you have encountered? It could be during the transition, it could be within the program right now. So I wonder if you can share a quick example with our audiences today.
I guess I could go ahead.
Yep.
Time management is a challenge for sure, because I am still working a full-time job and then a part-time job while completing the courses at the time and now my capstone. And to deal with that, these are the things that I did. Well, first, this may sound very counterproductive, but you need to take a break. Yes, I work a lot, but either on Sundays or Saturdays, I just do anything I want or something that'll make me happy, and that helps me recharge. And then second is talk to your team. You'll be working on a lot of group projects, and I'm very fortunate to have worked with 4 talented and kind individuals who just understand that sometimes we reach a point that we need a break, right? So just having that honest communication with them. And then lastly, I guess find a schedule or a tool that works for you, right? If writing that persuasive paper at 1 a.m. works for you, go for it. If that 4 p.m. nap is what you needed, go. So really time management techniques that's customized to your needs, and yeah, try to find that and then make it work.
Like mine was exactly the same. Gail hit on every point I was about to say too. So being open with your team is key. And then time management. To do a proper time management for yourself, you need to know yourself, your needs, and when you work best. So yeah.
Yep, that's great. Before we move on to the Q&A, like in the chat, I do have a very last question for our student ambassador. And also, I think I would want to invite Joseph back as well, because this is very important for our prospective student. So what would be the advice you want to give to the prospective student, understanding we have students in the group that they are considering the program in the next few years, or we may already have a student who wants to place a serious application for the very next cycle. So I wonder, from your perspective, what advice you would like to give to the prospective students? Who would like to start the first?
I can't go first.
Sure.
I know this was the same advice that was given to me, and I think I mentioned it. When you want to apply, be honest to yourself, what you want and what you are hoping to get out of it. And just be yourself when you're applying. I know it's counterintuitive, and the person told me that to be yourself, like give me something more concrete. But it really depends, just being yourself, because at the end of the day, it's a community in TRP, right? So it's better to be authentic to yourself, because it's going to work with everyone. If you want to be someone else and just have a mask the entire time, it can be exhausting. So yeah, be yourself, enjoy the journey. Always try to learn something. Even right now in this meeting, I felt I learned a lot from just Geil speaking. And yeah, learn, be yourself, and enjoy the journey. Don't be afraid to try new stuff too.
So for me, coming into the program, I was a little bit concerned because my background was in arts, and then I was going to go get a master's in health science, right? So I was a little bit intimidated. But then I realized that there's a lot of opportunities within the TRP to just contribute the way that makes sense most for you. So, you know, in my case, I created marketing plans, I built websites, things like that. So there are opportunities for me to showcase my talent, but at the same time, learn more and improve more in the skills that I want to continue on improving. So if you think you have really great talents and skills and knowledge that you want to offer to the program, just go for it, really. And ultimately, at least you applied and you were interested and you get in and you get that experience.
Yeah, what about you, Joseph? Would you like to give some advices for the prospective student? I'm pretty sure they would have loved to hear from the faculty's perspective in addition to our student perspective.
They say that when someone is ready to learn, there's someone that will be ready to mentor. Our program is pretty different and unique. We don't always do things the traditional way. Usually there are frustrations and accommodations. There is chaos in an organized fashion with uncertainty. If you are the type of person that likes all your ducks in a row and to be told exactly what to do and follow a script, then this is not the place for you. That is my advice, because you will not get that, and you will find yourself very lost, confused, and frustrated, and you will think horrible things of us. And to spare both of us those kinds of feelings, really, really think about yourself and what you want. And once you know what you want, not necessarily the specifics, but that you want to learn, or you want to grow, or you want to investigate, or you want to collaborate. Once you understand what motivates you, then come talk to us, because when you know what motivates you, we can work with you to try and achieve what it is you're after.
Thank you so much for that advice. So I think that's the advice you are going to give to the prospective student, and also ask them to gauge their suitability and stay connected with the department for the questions they may have. So I just take a quick look into the chat. It seems like we had a lot of questions asking in the chat, and I want to thank our student ambassador and Joseph for answering those questions. But I do want to quickly summarize 2 questions, because I noticed that some students send me the question directly, but I think it's really worth to just ask these questions loud. So the first question I have is that, what is the class size look like for the TRP program, and is everybody coming back in person for doing this program?
So I'll answer that really quickly. The class size is about 30, depending on various years, who applies and what's going on. We have to be large enough so that there's variety when doing group work, so people can move around, but small enough so that it is personal and we can try and sort of maintain relationships. We are an in-person program that provides accommodation for remote learners. The University of Toronto does not acknowledge the kind of education we are currently providing. Hybrid for the University of Toronto means 2/3 online content classes and 1/3 in-person delivery, not simultaneous delivery, which is what is now referred to as hyperflex and more akin to what we're actually doing. So we are technically an in-person, not hybrid, but we have accommodations for remote learning.
Yeah, that's really good to know the offering format. And also it's really good to know the class size, because it's important for people to understand and also anticipate when they were admitted into the program, what type of interaction they would have with their peers and their faculty member. So the second question, I think, which is the last question I received from the chat, is that, can you elaborate on the admission process, because we have students, they want to know what is the admission requirement and they are worried about their GPA. When you're doing the admission review, are you going to look at the GPA exclusively? And also, what is the interview process look like? Could you please further elaborate on that?
You know what? Although I could answer, I'm going to ask the students to answer. They're here and they know more about this than I do.
So for me, the grade, okay, this is another thing I forgot to mention. Another thing that really motivated me to apply for this master's program was because the minimum GPA requirement wasn't as high as middle school and other programs. And they say they'll look at it they have a holistic approach, that if you improve the first, second 2 years and like your shows that you really are excited for this program and why, and you know what you want out of it, they will even ignore some of the lower marks. Because personally, I bumped my first 2 years of undergrad, which really lowered my CGPA, and even though I really did good in the last 2 years. That's why that was another thing. I was like, okay, let's give this program a shot and see how it goes. And aside from that, yes.
I definitely would not have said that or put it that way.
Yeah, but don't worry about it. That's what I want to say. Like, if your cover letter that you're writing is genuine, you're good. At least it will get. I can't promise anything, but that's good. Don't worry about grades too much.
I don't know what they have on the website right now, but definitely there's a minimum grade, I think an A, which I applied because I reached it. And then, but I focused more on my letter of intent to show my experiences and why I actually wanted to do this program and how it will help me in the future. And of course, have someone else to read it, please, and get your feedback from them, because your first draft is not perfect, never is. And then another thing, I also chose a diverse set of people who would provide references for me. So my thesis advisor, my work supervisor, and a professor who taught courses in communications and balanced translation. So really related. So I guess really just showing who you are, what you want to get from the program, and what you could contribute to the program.
Does that answer everybody's question?
I think the part for the interview process hasn't been touched yet. So could you just elaborate on the interview process in general?
Just have fun. I guess that's the bottom line on that. And you gotta prepare for everything. I know during my interview, I was a guinea pig because they were testing out new questions. One of the questions was, think about a use of a pen. And you just like continue on saying how you could use that pen for like 2-3 minutes. And then you eventually just run out of ideas. But unconventional questions.
It's not your classics questions. So, and another advice I was given before my interview was try not to prepare for questions. So when they ask you a question, it feels like you're reading off the script. They want you to be as genuine as you can.
Yeah, thank you. I hope that answers the question our prospective student is asking right here. I hope this information session provides you with a snapshot about what is the TRP program look like. You already have a better understanding about the class size and also the support system provided within the program. And I think our program also have a lineup of workshops throughout the year for students to stay connected with the program.
Stay tuned, check the website, and join our mailing list.
All right, thank you. So I think this is a great way to wrap up today's session. So as I anticipated, time flies when we are having a very engaging information session. So I would like to thank everybody for coming to the session. Thank you so much for joining us at 4 p.m. Instead of your activities outside. And thank you so much for tuning in. And also I would like to thank our student ambassador Geil and Mouzhan, and also Professor Joseph Ferenbok for sharing your unique perspective. So as Joseph mentioned that there are a number of events lining up, and do stay in touch with the department. Do make sure to leverage these resources, gauge your suitability before you make an application. And if you have any other questions, do make sure you stay connected with the department. With that, I would like to close the session and wish everyone a good evening, and please stay healthy. And also we look forward to seeing you in our future events. Thank you.